Hello everyone, welcome back to the Linux device driver development series with Raspberry Pi. In today's video, we're going to explore the next kernel synchronization technique, spinlocks. In the previous video, we discussed mutexes with simple examples. If you went through the README file from that mutex tutorial, I highlighted an important point. Mutexes cannot be used in interrupt context. This is because mutex_lock may sleep, and sleeping is not allowed inside an ISR or any atomic context. So what should we do if we need to protect data that is shared between an interrupt handler and process context? That's where spinlocks come in. Let's understand why we need them. In the mutex example, we protected shared data between two callers running in process context. A mutex works well there because if the lock is not available, the caller can simply sleep and wait. But an interrupt service routine cannot sleep. When a GPIO interrupt fires, the kernel executes the ISR in interrupt context. If we try to sleep in that context, it will lead to a kernel crash. A spinlock solves this problem. Instead of putting the caller to sleep, the CPU will spin in a tight loop, continuously checking if the lock becomes available. There is no sleeping, no scheduling, just busy waiting until the lock is released. So these are the rules. We use mutex in process context, that can sleep, and use spinlock in atomic or interrupt context, that cannot sleep. Alright, now let's see this in action. I've created a module for this example, and it's based on the same code we used in the mutex example. But here, I've removed all the mutex initialization and usage. So right now, this is just a simple character device driver with open, release, and read file operations. I'm also using the same GPIO interrupt setup on pin 20. If you've been following this series, these steps should already be familiar. We've used this setup multiple times. Now, let's understand where the problem is. Inside the GPIO interrupt handler, I've added a small critical section. Every time the interrupt triggers, it updates the shared buffer and increments a counter. So essentially, the ISR is continuously modifying shared data. And if you look at the read operation, the driver copies data from this shared buffer into user space. So here's the situation. The ISR is writing to the shared buffer. The read function is reading from the same shared buffer, and both can happen at the same time. This creates a classic race condition. For example, the ISR might be updating the buffer. At the exact same time, the read call may try to copy that data. This can result in partial updates, inconsistent data, or corrupted output. So clearly, we need a way to protect this shared section. And this is exactly where a spinlock is required. First, we need to include the required header file to use spinlocks, linux/spinlock.h. And we need to initialize the spinlock. There are two ways to do this. The first method is dynamic initialization. In this approach, we declare a spinlock_t variable and then initialize it inside the init function using spin_lock_init. The second method is static initialization using the define_spinlock macro. This is simpler and more commonly used when you don't need any special setup. In this example, I'm using the static initialization approach with define_spinlock since it's straightforward and clean. In the top of the file, add the linux/spinlock.h header. Now, initialize the spinlock statically with the macro. I have named the spinlock as my_spinlock. Now, let's protect the critical sections using a spinlock. Inside the ISR, before entering the critical section, we acquire the lock using spin_lock and pass the address of our spinlock. At the end of the critical section, we release it using spin_unlock. Now, let's look at the read operation. Here, before entering the critical section, we also need to acquire the lock. But this time, we do not use spin_lock. Instead, we use spin_lock_irqsave. This function takes two arguments, the spinlock address, and a flags variable to store the interrupt state. So why don't we just use spin_lock here? let's understand what happens without IRQ save. Imagine this scenario. A process, for example, our read call, acquires the spin lock using spin_lock. It enters the critical section. Before it releases the lock, an interrupt occurs on the same CPU. Now the ISR starts executing. Inside the ISR, we again try to acquire the same spin lock. But the lock is already held by the same CPU. So what happens? The ISR starts spinning, waiting for the lock to be released. But the process that holds the lock cannot continue, because it has been interrupted. So now, the ISR is waiting for the lock. The process cannot resume to release it. This results in a deadlock. And the key reason is this: the same CPU cannot progress to release the lock while it is stuck inside the ISR. To prevent this, we use spin_lock_IRQ save. What this does is, it disables local interrupts on that CPU, then acquires the spin lock. So while the lock is held, the ISR cannot interrupt and try to acquire the same lock. After the critical section, we call spin_unlock_IRQ restore, which releases the lock, restores the previous interrupt state. So the rule is, if a spin lock is shared between process context and an ISR, we must use spin_lock_IRQ save in process context. Now, notice that the copy to user call is placed after releasing the spin lock. This is very important. Copy to user can sleep, for example, if a page fault occurs while accessing user memory. And as we know, we must never sleep while holding a spin lock. So the correct approach is, keep the critical section as short as possible, copy the data into a local buffer while holding the spin lock, release the spin lock, then perform copy to user outside the critical section. This ensures no sleeping inside the spin lock, minimal time spent holding the lock, safe and efficient synchronization. This len local variable do not needs, so I will remove that. Alright, now our setup is complete. Let's build the module and test the code. Alright, the build is complete. Let's open the kernel log in another terminal. And now load the module. Okay, module loaded. You can see that the device node /dev/my_cdev0 has been created successfully. First, let's press the button. Now, in the kernel log, you can see that the GPIO interrupt has occurred. This means the ISR has executed and updated the shared buffer. The count value is now 1. Now, in the terminal, let's read the data using cat command. Sudo cat /dev/my_cdev0 and press enter. You'll notice that it continuously prints the buffer content. This happens because we didn't implement proper end-of-data handling or null termination logic for controlled reads. So the cat command keeps calling read in a loop, expecting more data. In simple terms, cat keeps reading until it reaches the end of file. But since our driver keeps returning data, it continues indefinitely. Now, let's press the button again. You can see the count value increasing in the output. This confirms that the ISR is updating the shared buffer, the read operation is accessing the same buffer. And thanks to the spin lock, both the ISR and process context are properly synchronized. No data corruption occurs. Access to shared memory is safe. Alright, that's how you use a spin lock in the Linux kernel. I've also included some additional important notes and different spinlock variants in the README file. So make sure to go through that to get a deeper understanding of spinlocks. In the next video, we'll explore another synchronization mechanism, completion in the Linux kernel. So stay tuned, and I'll see you in the next video.